slowly but surely destroying New Zealand. It's destroying the New Zealand in which we grew up. It's destroying the New Zealand that we still
The
have today.
art of politics is often described as a grand show in which the politicians are the actors and the voters are the audience. The politicians star in what is an ongoing performance, one designed to entertain and placate the electorate.
They tell me I've won a nickname.
And as with any performance, it's easy to be seduced by the smoke and mirrors and the simple theatrics of it all.
It's also easy to forget that behind the scenes, the real story is being played out in a much more complicated world. A world crowded with issues.
Issues are the lifeblood of our politics. And through the years, we've had political parties to represent almost everyone.
The Christian Nationals, the Independent Political Association, the Family Man's Party. And then, of course, the Independents, dozens of them. A 68-year-old in Auckland said he was standing just to make a personal statement and he'd resign if elected.
Some parties have been more radical than others.
Handsome, anti-Maori violence, pro-apartheid, 6-3.
And some have successfully championed issues and ideas few of us expected to see enter the political arena.
The nudists are emerging from the bush. They are coming out of their holiday camps, turning their backs on their volleyball games and barbecues, and coming here to Parliament.
In 1970s New Zealand, nudists were regarded as hopelessly misguided, genitally fixated hippies. Or worse, perverts. But in 1972, that began to change when the New Zealand Naturists Federation announced the formation of the country's first nudist party.
The following is a party political broadcast on behalf of the Naturist Socialist Party.
Children, they are the future of our country. But what if these children grow up ashamed of their bodies? What kind of leaders would they make? And what kind of country would they lead? It's a big question mark, isn't it?
Good evening. Tonight I'd like to show you how we can banish that question mark. The naturist socialists believe that clothing is an impediment to open and honest government. That's why we want to take away the shame. We believe universal nudism is the key to a more transparent democracy, as well as a healthier lifestyle. It's time for a nude Zealand. A naturist socialist government would scrap police uniforms and use the savings to fund 500 extra nude police. We will make nudism mainstream, thus attracting overseas visitors and potentially doubling our tourism sector. We will phase in nudism in the public sector over a 5-year period, with the aim of making New Zealand fully nude by 1980. We believe New Zealand could be the first nude-based economy within 20 years. So why not join us with a nude way?
Vote Naturist Socialist for transparent government.
The Naturist Socialists campaign of 72 has been well organised. They've canvassed heavily in leader Kevin O'Shea's Northcote electorate, but faced unique problems. There was the weather, as well as the prejudices of ordinary people, many of whom refused to take them seriously.
G'day. Hi, we're from the Naturist Socialist Party. We're just here to ask a few questions.
Yeah,
Critics may have regarded the naturists as something of a joke, but their baggy scrotums and saggy breasts obscured some surprisingly innovative and astute policy.
The Working for Nude Families policy preceded Labour's similar but fully clothed version by more than 30 years. And it's the naturist socialists we can thank for another key element of New Zealand's social policy. The Accident Compensation Corporation was originally conceived by a nudist think tank as a means to fund treatment for the high number of burns suffered by naturists at Sun Club barbecues. Hello.
Hi.
Now, I'm going to show you 3 things, and you've got to tell me what you do with them. Number 1. Well, you seem to know what to do with that one, all right. Number 2, a handkerchief. Excellent. Remember, coughs and sneezes spread diseases. Now, number 3, a bowl of disinfectant. Hey, you don't drink it, man. That's for the soiled handkerchief, which is full of germs. Got it? Good. Remember, don't spread germs.
Few issues penetrate as intimately or as darkly as the fear of arse banditry. Up until 1986, this popular gay leisure pursuit was a criminal act. Homophobia was enshrined in New Zealand law. But when the Homosexual Law Reform Bill came before Parliament, gays took to the street to support the end of sexual discrimination.
There are twice as many gays in New Zealand as there are club rugby players. They are scattered right through our society. They are among the people you work alongside at your job. They are the ordinary people you see in the streets. They are everywhere.
Look, there's one, and here's another one, who helpfully gave a potted history of gay rooting.
Before gay saunas were around, or before they became sort of commonplace, and before there was a large gay community as such, gay men, the only way they tended to find other gay men were in things like toilets or the beats and that, and, which is pretty sort of yucky.
Yucky wasn't the half of it for National MP Norm Jones, New Zealand's favourite homophobe.
You're down the drain. You're back into the sewers. You're back into the sewers where you come from. What we're looking at here, I don't love homosexuals. As far as I'm concerned, you can stay in the gutter.
He says there's no doubt homosexuals and closet homosexuals wield power in high office in governments all over the world.
No, it wasn't a deliberate thing that I wore the pink vest. And in fact, being secure in my sexuality, I felt that I could wear pink on any occasion whenever I wished. I liked Norm. He was a good guy. He was to the right of Genghis Khan, but he was a nice old chap. In fact, one of that generation now almost completely dead by and large, but a man of infinite humour and fascist viewpoints.
What about policy-making groups like the State Department and the States?
Well, one doesn't know. They'd be closet homosexuals. For everyone that's come out of the closet and declared themselves a known homosexual, there are probably dozens of others inside the closet wielding this sort of power. And I quite don't doubt that they're in New Zealand too. And in fact, I know if this place would probably close down tomorrow if they all come out of the closet.
What, Parliament?
I believe, no, the Beehive.
Mr Jones says the country must be alerted to the international gay threat and be prepared to stand up against it.
An anti-bill petition, which claimed to have 800,000 signatures, was presented to Parliament. Battle lines were drawn. On one side, mad Christian bigots. On the other side, great, big, blathering homos. Labour MP Fran Wild introduced the bill. And although she came to the protest buttoned up to the neck to ward off lesbian advances, she despised the homophobes and had visions of a gay Holocaust.
These are the ones who are the perverts, not the gay and lesbian community. And if this bill doesn't get through, then who will be next? That's what my question today. I was born after the Second World War, but from this and some of the meetings I've attended with others opposing the bill, I am beginning to understand what it must have felt like to be Jewish in pre-war Germany.
I think it's been a tremendous day. It's been a day
of the people of New Zealand. And the whole presentation has been one of professionalism, one of concern, one of dignity, and I think it's been a marvellous historic day in parliamentary history.
The bill became law, but when Graham Lee was later made Minister of Civil Defence, he continued to warn New Zealanders of the homosexual menace and modelled this high-tech, gay-proof thermal sheet.
People owe it to themselves and to their neighbours to actually be prepared.
It's just a giant field of kikuyu grass now, but this is the actual spot where Te Treaty o Waitangi was signed. Interestingly, there's no sign to actually mark the spot.
Sadly, the birthplace of our nation is now little more than a tourist trap, in which visitors are taxed $12 for the privilege of viewing a rather crude facsimile of the treaty.
And here it is.
The treaty was designed in part to protect the commercial interests of both Maori and Pākehā. And nowadays, nearby Paihia, with its preponderance of garish signage, is a reminder of the uglier side of that commercialism.
If Maori had known that signing the treaty would ultimately lead to the arrival of the Lighthouse Sports and Party Bar and its ilk, things might have turned out differently.
The treaty has long been a hot topic of debate.
Of course, I'd never seen one before, so I took to it with a poker. Poor Pookie's never forgiven me. Have you?
What's your opinion of this contract with the Maori, Sir Graham? What is it, the docket of Waitangi?
Well, it's like a receipt of sorts, so that they don't become Indian givers like those,
Indians?
No, not the dot-headed curry munchers, the feathers, woo, America, all that. They wanted all their land back after it was sold fairly and squarely.
Well, quite.
You say I'm speaking too loudly?
No, quite. Not quiet.
Don't come that attitude with me. I'm an Englishman, not some retardate savage.
An Englishman?
Yes.
How do you expect the natives to understand the treaty when you can't even deal with the Queen's English, old boy?
I was talking to Lady Fanny Teckham, and she said one of the chiefs used his facial tattoo as his signature.
I heard one of them signed the blasted thing with his ass.
Oh, no, that was Lord Montague. He's never been quite the same since he had that hole thing he drilled in his head by the Italian surgeon.
That whole thingy, my dear, is known as a trepanation. You've had several trepanations, haven't you, Sir Grey?
Don't be ridiculous. I've been dead for years. What in Jehovah's name is this? Who are you?
And thanks largely to the advent of talkback radio, insightful political conversations like this can still be heard to this very day.
Can somebody smell something burning? Who the hell are you?
In fact, we've been arguing about the treaty since the day it was signed. And few have argued as provocatively as this man.
We should not use the treaty as a basis for creating greater civil, political or democratic rights for Maori than for any other New Zealander.
Following his controversial One Nation-styled Orewa address, Brash visited Waitangi, only to face sledging that would have made the Australian cricket team proud. Some of it was poetic.
From banker to wanker.
And some of it less so.
Shame, you smirking fuck. Shame.
There are things, I think, which we need to say, and there are things which, no doubt, we need to hear.
Stop! Brash is a racist pig! Fuck off, pig, to where you come from, you bullies!
It was Don's darkest hour. And it was about to get worse when he received an unexpectedly earthy welcome on arriving here outside Te Ti'i Marae.
Mainstream media. Not a bad shot.
Thankfully, his wife Jilan was on hand to help.
Don Brash speaking. Hi, darling.
On the phone, at least.
The DPS man has just, at this moment, got my jacket in his hand, and the hotel has offered to do a sort of spot clean. They can't do a dry cleaning, it's only done in Whangarei, but they can do a spot cleaning of it, and the DPS gentleman is just about to take the jacket off for that purpose. And the tie, it's not badly affected.
The tie was not badly affected, but Brash was. His Waitangi Odyssey, a reminder of the perils of leadership.
Very threatening stuff for you and me. It was more threatening than I've seen for quite a long time, sort of physically threatening. Right. To racial wars and so on, and don't forget most of them, army are brown, and it was quite threatening. I mean, they were talking about what a nice meal you would make.
Thankfully, the threat to cook Jerry was never carried out. However, had the Waitangi protesters had their way, it's believed the Brownlee carcass would have provided enough meat for several hapu, with plenty left over for a generous meat pack. We like to think that our general elections are won and lost on the big issues. But the reality may be quite different. While some may fret about health, education and crime, others are more concerned with their balls.
Well, as president of the Albion Cricket Club here in Dunedin, I would like to ask the four parties their views on sales tax on sporting goods. This ball here costs $11.95. Our senior team uses 2 of these a game. Our subscription is $20. Last year, our subscriptions didn't even pay for our balls.
This man was one of a random selection of voters invited to voice their chief concerns in 1975. The results were a fascinating insight into New Zealand society.
I would like to know whether the current high rate of tax on the middle income bracket is likely to remain.
My name is Mark Schofield, and I'd like to know what inflation is, what causes it, and what your parties are going to do about it.
Hello, David Stott from Hamilton. I'm a life assurance representative.
And I would like to ask the four leaders why we have to have compulsory unionism.
In August '74, my weekly grocery account was $24.50. Today, to get the same number of items, I'd have to spend over $44. I would like to ask the leaders, what do they intend doing about stabilising food prices?
My name's Jennifer Page. I'm a solo parent with 3 children. I'd like to ask, what are your population policies?
I'm Pat O'Shea, and I'm a pensioner, and I want to ask Mr Muldoon, what will happen to our 5-cent bus fare, our TV licence and our telephone rental?
Unsure of how to deal with these and other issues, the politicians turned to their advertising agencies.
This is a party political broadcast from the National Party.
Labour's financial manoeuvring has created a new elite to which Labour people cannot aspire. Labour has deserted its own people.
Despite the big budgets enjoyed by National and Labour,
and so this Labour government punished the criminal,
it's always been the single-issue parties that have been the true innovators.
Social credit will reduce rates. Now there's a bold statement.
Social credit was much admired for its use of blocks.
While assets and debts accumulate, interest charges accrue twice as fast as the debt.
Hi, I'm Gary Knapp. This is my wife Lee and my daughters Persia and Shan. I have another daughter.
In this spot, Gary Knapp is so wooden, it's as if someone has thrown a chair into the room. A big Rimu one.
This is Ken, a buddy of mine. We've caught a lot of fish together. Well, he's caught them. I usually end up cleaning them.
The McGillicuddy Serious Party wowed us with cotton wool animation. while the Greens gave us Mastermind.
Diane Gatward, your subject is the Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand. 2 minutes on that topic, starting now. Is the Green Party a serious contender in the election?
Yes. Opinion polls indicate the Greens are already the third major party in New Zealand.
Correct.
Today's Greens began as the Values Party.
Over 300,000 people said no to the cutting down of our last native forests.
They were pioneers of apocalyptic animation in the days before we discovered that we could save the planet with a woven green shopping bag.
We should be making use of our trees only at the rates at which they can be replaced.
But the Greenies share something in common with the major parties. They love to scare us shitless.
Can money buy us a new planet?
One of the rising stars of the Values Party was Jeanette Fitzsimons. In 1976, she gave Kiwis their first glimpse of green-style shopping.
Could I have 2 pounds of the courgettes, please?
I'd always take a shopping basket rather than use the paper ones that they give you.
Don't put them in a bag, they'll be all right in here. Thank you.
At the time, few thought Jeanette's parsimonious nitpickery would ever catch on.
Write it down there.
Have you stopped using plastic bags?
No. It's crap. Nonsense.
And they come in a lovely tin. Look, you can use it for all kinds of biscuits and things afterwards because it's got a lid that fits on.
Christine's been decorating the outside and selling them on the trading table with biscuits
what
and
a
things
good
inside.
idea.
Whether it be saving giant mammals, preserving our indigenous culture, or the age-old problem of public masturbation, there's no doubt that this country is plagued by perennial issues. And whilst it's easy to believe that we live in unique times, the fact remains that the burning issues of today are often the same as the burning issues of yesterday, endlessly recycled and reused in an ongoing discourse of disharmony. In this, our Aotearoa, land of issues.